Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Clinical Trial Podcast. I'm your host, Kunal Sampath, where my job is to help you accelerate your clinical research career. Today, we're going to dive deep into cardiovascular device development, specifically what it really takes to bring a high risk Class 3 medical device from idea to reality. My guest today is Nicole Haratani, Vice President of Clinical Affairs at Supira Medical. Nicole has spent more than 2 decades at the forefront of cardiovascular innovation, leading global clinical and regulatory strategy at some of the most complex device programs in the industry. Over the course of her career, she has helped companies move from first in human and feasibility studies all the way through blinded, randomized pivotal trials and pre market approval. She's built and led clinical and regulatory teams, worked closely with the FDA, collaborated with key opinion leaders and scientific advisory boards, played critical roles in major cardiovascular clinical programs, including transcatheter valves and drug eluting stents. In this conversation, we unpack the key points that determine whether a cardiovascular device actually makes it to the market, how to design pivotal clinical trials when patient safety is of utmost importance, what makes or breaks a pre market approval, PMA submission, how to effectively collaborate with regulators such as the FDA and KOLs without compromising scientific integrity. If you've ever wondered how cardiovascular medical devices are developed, or if you're looking to build a career in clinical affairs, I think you are going to love this episode and all the practical insights from a leader that has worked at the highest levels. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Nicole Haratani on the Clinical Trial Podcast.
Great clinical research professionals aren't born, they're built. In each episode, hear from leading experts in clinical trial management as they inspire and motivate you to become an effective leader. Welcome to the Clinical Trial Podcast. Here to help you accelerate your career is your host, Kunal Sampath.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Clinical Trial Podcast. Really pumped to have you on this podcast interview. Just really excited for you to share the wealth of experience and knowledge you have in clinical research with our listeners today. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Kunal. It was nice to reconnecting, and thanks for having me over. I'm very honored, quite frankly, to be part of this podcast and happy to share whatever I can in terms of experience.
That's
If it
great.
can help.
That'd be great. So, I want to I think from a conversation flow, I want to we can start off with like your career journey, because I know you've held like many roles over the course of your career. So maybe you can share a little bit about like how you got started in clinical trials, and then just the increasing responsibilities that you've held over the years. So if you can kind of orient us on that, that'd be like a great place to start.
Absolutely, yeah. So actually, I am a nurse from a background. I started as an ICU cardiac surgery nurse. I come from Lebanon, my father being Lebanese. So I started there and I practiced in Lebanon. I studied there during the war, moved to France, and then I also practiced there. I finished my studies and then worked in cardiac surgery, heart transplant, ICU, and then came to the States as just an adventure. I wanted to know how the world in America is, and that was the American dream. And I also practiced in the same field in the cardiac surgery, ICU nurse for 2 years, only to realize that I really didn't learn quite a lot difference in terms of the practice and the work. So I met my now husband at that time back in 98, so a year after I came to the US. And he's the one who actually encouraged me to consider the clinical research world, having friends working in the pharma and the research. And some of them also have the same background as mine, being a nurse. So I jumped on this opportunity, and my first job was going from definitely the bedside nurse to an office at St. Jude Medical in the CRM division. I started as a CRA. St. Jude back then started as it was just acquired. Venturetex was just acquired by St. Jude Medical, so they were still in the in the startup environment. So I had the opportunity to really start wearing multiple hats, and that's where it triggered my curiosity to learn more about what I'm doing. I had no idea what IRB is or what ICF, means, and the computer and all that stuff. I was quite frankly overwhelmed and worried that I'm not gonna succeed in this environment. And so I signed up for clinical trials and design management at UC Santa Cruz, and I was working pretty much in the day, and then after that would go and attend the courses 3 days a week. So it was tough. I was pregnant with my daughter at that time, but I was determined. I wanted to get the whole program and certificate, and I was using this knowledge as we go. So I would go and learn data management. When I take my course in data management, I will sit down with the data manager and tell her, can you show me this? Can you show me that? And it was great for me to learn these different fields, in terms of how do we do this. But then I moved to a Guidant, and I think Guidant back then, Guidant became Abbott. I think that I call it the Guidant University. I learned a lot. I learned this is where I had the opportunity to have great mentors and great managers who actually guided me in my journey from a CRA to intermediate CRA to clinical data architect, because I learned how to program and face forward and how to build an EDC for the first time in medical device. So I was really excited about it. Took me a year after that to realize I'm not done to sit down and do programming. I can do a lot of things, but then the programming thing was very exciting, interesting, but it was kind of a little too much of a sitting, in my opinion. But I did learn a lot of the behind the scene, and that helped me when I moved as a project manager. And that's where, having done all these roles as a CRA, monitor, project manager, data, clinical data architect, data management, a little bit of safety, I learned quite a lot. And it helped me also getting more to learn more in the fields that is like the quality and the audit and preparing for audit. So I spent a relatively good time at Abbott, but Guidant was acquired by Abbott, and there I had the opportunity to do some work for panel, and I got the interaction with physicians, primarily from the Cardiovascular Research Foundation, Dr. Greg Stone, Dr. Marty Leon, Dr. Roxana Moran, Dr. Alexandra Lansky. We worked very closely to make this panel successful, which actually ended up as a great success considering the short time to prepare. And I learned I was mentored by Gary Thompson, who was really managing the whole activities around the execution of this, but he was guiding me on the things to do and not to do, and I really enjoyed this activity, and eventually I was hired by CRF as a director of their clinical trial center for clinical planning and project management. And that was another university for me. It's literally having the academic, given to you for free. You just have to work. So I learned quite a lot just tagging along with the physicians, listening to them, talking with multiple sponsors about study design. And I got really intrigued about the regulatory aspect of the world of the regulatory and the statistical part of it. So I signed up to take my regulatory, the RAPS. And I have to admit that it was quite a challenge, because initially, I failed the first time. I was like, no, it's not possible. Like, I had to do it again. But it didn't let me, I didn't let it go. I was like, I'm determined. I have done quite a lot of things. This is one thing I want to add to my bucket list. So I did, and then I took my first role in regulatory, which happened to be a drug. So I had to go back and then do the reps for the drug side of it, more focused on the drug studies. and it was a drug device combination. So I got really to run the regulatory and clinical and quality. And then by learning the quality, I went and I did my certificate with BSI for quality to make sure I know what I'm doing. And um, I was very much representing the company during audits for the ISO 13485. So I was the representative, and it was really a new experience. Of course, I had people who were very experienced, working with me and guiding me, and I learned from them. And they were actually the ones who were running the show, but I was behind them, and I'm telling them, if you believe this is the way to do it, I trust you. I'm just learning. So that's basically how it evolved. And I was a VP. I've been now VP for more than 10 years. I think being in this position is carries, of course, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of people management, and making sure that your team continues to be motivated while you meet the business goals and milestones. It does require a lot of, patience in terms of wanting to meet quickly, but we want to have the quality. So we're very oriented quality. And I continue to learn. Life is an open book of learning. And every time, every year, I say, oh, I learned something new. So I'm never there, I say, but that's what motivates me to continue in my career, whether it's a title or not at this point. It's more about learning and continue to learn in clinical research.
I love it. I just see a recurring theme of continuous learning, just the way you explained it. If you don't mind, we can expand on some of the things. That was like an amazing overview of your career. So thank you for sharing. And I should say that the RAC certification is really difficult. Because I did the medical device one, and I remember like sweating during the exam. Like it was intense. 3 hours or whatever it lasts for, or 4 hours. I don't know. It was like a lot of work. Reading like a 400-page textbook and just reading it's just a lot of learning, especially for somebody who's from a clinical trial background. It's a whole different language that you're trying to learn. But I agree, it's a great experience. I think you mentioned like Guidance University, and then you mentioned like Cardiovascular Research Foundation. Like you learned a lot, and I want to maybe what were like some of the things that those organizations did or provided you with that um, made it easy, not easy, but made it possible for you to kind of engage. I know part of it is you kind of driving and like trying to learn, but also there must be something that they did that you've appreciated as well.
Yeah, so I can give you an example for each. The first one is Guidant. They used to have, I believe, on a monthly basis, a KOL coming. Typically, it was either Stanford or El Camino, a local physician, cardiology, or others come and do a presentation about what the anatomy, what to look in coronary, and it was open for all employees. So that was kind of, I think it was on Thursdays, if I remember vaguely, but it was a time during lunch where everybody would go at the conference room that was opened up to all divisions. It was interventional cardiology, is what vascular intervention. It was the peripheral. It was the cardiac surgery division. So we would all go there and then see a live case, and then the moderator will explain what he's doing or what they're doing. And I thought that was amazing because coming from an ICU cardiac surgery, and then we did some cath lab, and we did rotate in my career. We do rotate ER, all the stuff. But then with the balloon and the stents evolving, there was a bare metal stent in the beginning. Then we went into the drug-eluting stent. I thought they were very helpful in our practice of clinical research, studying stents and drug-eluting stents. So I think that was, I will always remember this. And then they would encourage also employees to pick, to take to go and then take lessons that will help them grow in their career. So I would choose something that would help me in my project management, for example. I did take the course at Stanford, and they covered the cost for over 2 years. And I really am grateful for that opportunity. So, having this type of learning for the employees to encourage them, even for cardiac surgery, they had like a device and something that related to the pump and the support, or in peripheral, the karate extent. So we learned from each division, but we learned also what we're doing, and I think this was like great,
Mm.
amazing, I'd say. At CRF, the opportunities of learning were like unprecedented. I go just sitting with the physicians and listening to the brainstorming on how to design a program. For, like a sponsor would come and say, "We have this product, we want to do this, we want to do that," and then there was like this brainstorming session. I followed them on one of the major study that was, I guess, the Excel study. That was some advisory meeting, and I was with them representing the just taking notes as a matter of fact, and learning and absorbing. So it was really interesting to hear all these physicians talking, uh, because sometimes you don't see it from a sponsor perspective. You're limited to one aspect and one therapy. From the academic research, you're really exposed to multiple therapies in the field, and that was by itself a good learning
Mm.
opportunity. I'll never forget Dr. Milan when there was a TCT. We were part of the organizer, of course, TCT and CRF, and she encouraged me. She put me on the put my name on the panel and encouraged me to present, and I was like extremely nervous that day. I was like, I'm gonna fall apart and crash on the podium. I never presented at TCT in such a big event, and she was behind me telling me, "You'll be fine, you'll be okay. Just focus on the topic." So that's something you don't get an opportunity like this all the time. So I'm grateful for that as well.
That's great. Um, and then you mentioned about Greg Stone and Gary Thompson. And I've had both on the podcast before, so I'll link in the show notes for people if they want to listen to those episodes. Dr. Stone was on the podcast not too long ago, so it'd be great for people to listen in. And then the other thing you mentioned about like was motivating the team, and kind of trying to meet business objectives. So maybe can you tell a little bit more about like some of the things that you found to be effective and you're trying to work with the team and kind of, get them to engage in the work that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have one thing is that work hard, play hard is absolutely one thing that gets really the team motivated. They work hard, and sometimes we tend to forget that we're like so focused on doing the work, and then from one finish, the other one starts, and we don't take the time to really get to know each other. And with the COVID, a lot of things were virtual, and that kind of added to the fact that we were like in our houses, in our homes most of the time, now remote. So I really think I implemented that by saying every time we meet a milestone, whether we are about to meet it, we are close to it or not, we meet every 3 months and do a team building activity. Every 6 months we do a team building activity, get to know each other, and then reward ourselves for what we have just accomplished. And I learned this. I didn't invent it. Quite frankly, it does. I learned it from precedent managers who managed me and gave me that example, and I thought it works. With me, it was very motivating, rewarding. I think people like to hear that they're doing a good job now and then. And we tend to, including myself, forget that nice
Mm-hmm.
words when this thing rewards is huge for somebody who works hard. So I always keep myself. I remind myself, try to remind myself often to say thank you. I remember also writing notes, card notes, or sending Amazon cards just to say thank you, whether it was a personal thank you or on behalf of the company. It didn't matter to me. very people oriented, a little bit too much also, to a point where I feel, the team is my family, and I'm part of that family, and we work as supporting each other, and that's what they get you know from this.
I love it. Yes, I love it. Work hard, play hard, and then just the thank you notes.
Yeah.
I think they're really helpful. It's funny that you mentioned because I have them on my desk right now because I've had a stack of them to write to people, and I started doing them earlier this year. So I highly recommend that strategy, like writing thank you notes to your colleagues, but
Mhm.
also like to people that you like your sites and so on. It can go a really long way. In really, it's a lot of work, but the people do appreciate being appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I know we were wanting to talk about cardiovascular device development from idea to reality. So with that kind of overarching theme in mind, maybe you can start off with like, can you walk us through like the journey of a cardiovascular design device from like initial concept to reality? What are the key inflection points that help determine whether or not this product will move forward in its journey?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about the back of the napkin kind of idea, as you know. So it's basically an idea that one person or two come up with, and then they reach out to R&D engineers to start putting in prototypes and testing it. So it really starts as a back on of the napkin concept. This concept comes with prototypes. The prototypes are being built, and some feedback is collected from who is going to be eventually the user for this device that is going to become a medical device. And then the prototype keeps, being updated, being tested on the bench, and then the cycle goes on until they get to a very solid one that is comfortable. They feel comfortable enough to start with the animal study. Now there are a GLP and non-GLP, as you know, and then non-GLP allow to do the tests and collect data without being so strict about the way you collect the data, and you, of course, there's the respect for the animals that you have to always follow the rule. And there are the GLP that you do it really by the book, that is going to be the one that is going to help you to go to the agency. Now, sometimes if you have your study on an animal that is clearly similar to what is the GLP, and then you figure out that, oh my God, this is working, and I'm ready now to go to the human, to the first in human. This discussion with the FDA is critical at that time point to agree on, okay, we do run a checklist, we confirm it's GLP like or not, and then don't, the point is to talk with the agency as early as possible, and then it is tested in first in human. That's where you collect the data, and you'll make sure that the data is really what you need for this, and then if you need more and to redesign the product, that's where you have the opportunity to restart the cycle, eventually maybe on the bench, and then again on the animal, and maybe not, and it goes into a point where you are ready to move on from the first in man to either the feasibility or directly to a pivotal study. And that is done on human in a larger number of patients, more sites, more user. It's going to look like the product that you actually eventually are going to commercialize. And basically, you conduct the study, and it's scrutinized and looked at very carefully by the agency. And it's a work between regulatory agencies, whether in the U.S. or outside. It's a collaboration between the sponsor, the physicians, and the agency to make sure this is done. But once it's approved, now it's on the market. There is also the post-markets, data that you need to collect to validate the safety, and sometimes they require it at the FDA, and then you run other studies to expand the indication or not. But it really starts really with an idea, and it grows. It's like a handover. It comes with the inventor founder, it goes to the R&D engineers, and then it goes to hand it to the work with the manufacturing together, Then it's handed to clinical, and clinical makes sure that goes back to the R&D saying what works, what doesn't work, and then it's a constant collaboration with the quality, with the regulatory, and then the ultimate goal is to bring it safe to the market. So
I
that's
see.
the
That
life.
got it. No, that's great. Thanks for walking through that. GLP, for those that don't know, good lab practices. Is that the right?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. Good laboratory
Uh,
practices. Yeah.
um, so, what are some of the unique challenges that come with developing class 3 cardiovascular devices compared to like other medical devices, and how do these challenges shape like your strategy from the onset?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I think you have the less class three is where they are. You have a high risk device. Usually, the simple question: if I don't use it well, is it gonna hurt the patient? And then you have the class two, or they go through a quicker pass, which is typically either 510K or de novo indication. So these are two passes where you have sometimes to run a clinical trial, but the approval at the back end from the submission to the FDA to get it approved is quicker in the 510K, less quicker in the Novo, and definitely longer in the IDE Class 3 device. That is, timeline is a challenge, of course. The amount of work that is needed to get a Class 3 device in clinical trial is substantial. There are more requirements in terms of we all care about safety. Nowadays, in a class three, especially in the cardiovascular, having a proctor, having a field support is becoming like it's a given. You have to have somebody being available, especially during your first human feasibility study. They are essential to make sure that the use of the device is not going to be an impact on the device failure, because the user, what we call user error, is when the device is working, but the user is using it differently, and then eventually could have a malfunction with the product, could be an impact on patient safety. So there are a lot more mitigations. As opposed to the one that are class two, you have a predicate, you have similar devices out there. So it's already established. You just want to prove that it's as safe as the ones that are out there. So the other thing in clinical, in class C, you have new devices that are like never been tested, or there are no precedent. Um, I work in one of the therapies, the pVAD, percutaneous ventricular assist device. There is one company out there that has the product on the market, but there are a lot of startup companies like ours working on the same product, because it's a need. It's a very it's a clinical need that is really out there, but it's a class three, and it doesn't come as easy. We're working on very sick patients, and you better have the device work well.
No, fair enough. Thank you. And I think for those, like, let's say this is an overview from a US regulatory framework. Obviously, Europe is going to be slightly different, but the concepts are very similar. Um, so maybe we can talk a little bit about clinical trial design. So when you're approaching designing like pivotal studies for like these high risk, cardiovascular devices where patient safety is really important, what kind of considerations are into play? Like, what are the things that you're usually thinking about when you're putting this type of a program together?
Oh, yeah. So the first thing is you want to know if your product is safe and show safety, and then if it works, performance or feasibility, and what are the points that you can derive from this to say it works, and from it to say if it's safe, to say it's safe. So to design a trial that you want to get those two major important points defined, or identified, you select your primary endpoint about them. I always, like I said, although I have learned stat, I have learned regulatory, I've learned you name it. I always like to have the expert in the room to listen to them. And so I always have a biostat to say, okay, if we were to use this, what would get me my sample size? Look at the business need too, and then, how we forecast our study design to get the best of it without hurting us. The safety is an important component, so when you design your study, you look at whether there's a product similar out there, what are their endpoints, and then see if this applies to your product, and then probably use similar to look at how we're comparing to these without, of course, you have to have a head-to-head study, but as a starting point, that's a feasibility to see how am I doing, are we going on the right, to, we're heading to the right direction with this study design. The other thing is for the feasibility, you want to see if it's work and what are the outcome from a performance from the device. If the device is always falling, and breaking when you're using it, clearly you're not ready. So you have to really see the outcome if it were. Durability is one of them in the heart valves. You want to see this as a safety, but also it's a long-term feasibility. It's durable. That means it's working from a product design. So these are the things you start looking at. And then you look at your patient population. Who are the target population? Are they high risk? Are they elderly? Are they everybody? Is there, what's type of a, and then you start building your entry criteria or exclusion criteria. And that's definitely discussed with the KOLs because they are in the field and they see what works and what doesn't work. And they advise you, of course, and they want you to succeed in the trial. And then based on this, now you have what you want your endpoint, you have what you want your patient population. Now you put together the whole, design to calculate your sample size, how you're going to analyze the data, and then you build upon how you want to conduct it, and then what the infrastructure for it. Who do you
Mhm.
need? Do you need an independent clinical event committee, a DSMB, all the infrastructure that helps core labs and central lab and so on. So it starts with really identifying what you want to show your device does.
Yeah. You mentioned about the independent safety committee, the DSMB. Do you usually manage those in-house, or do you actually outsource it to like a third party?
Uh, so you can project management. They are always independent members, as you know.
Hmm.
They have to be independent because this is one of the bias mitigation for any trial. You
Yeah,
can choose to have those project managed internally with people who have safety background and who can
I
actually
see.
manage and plan. Or
Hmm.
you can hire an organization or a CRO to manage these independent physicians and to make
Hmm.
sure that the quorum is there during the meeting, that they understand the protocol. So it's really depending on what
Hmm.
your infrastructure internally is set up, how
Yeah,
it is set up.
yeah. I've seen it done both ways, but I find like the if it's all managed externally, it's somewhat of it gives that perception that the sponsor is not really involved in the management of the safety data. Um,
Yes,
Great.
it's a collaboration. Actually, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
collaboration. Mhm.
Okay. For industry sponsored studies, I'm curious how you come up with the inclusion exclusion criteria. I mean, you have a starting point, but I feel like a lot of things happen from when you start drafting the inclusion exclusion to when you end up finalizing. There's a lot of stakeholders that you interact with, and can you like walk us through that, and also like the challenges that you face and how you overcome them along the way when it comes to kind of finalizing those
Yeah,
inclusion exclusion. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So you're right. I mean, in a pivotal trial, you want to have your exclusion and inclusion criteria to be reflecting what your instruction for use is going to be eventually and contraindicating. So you don't want to really restrict it that much when you get to a PMA study to allow the use of your product in the right patient population outside the clinical trial. So that's going backward when you start first in human, you are going to really, you don't want noise right into your data. You want purely what the device is doing. So you select patients who have less of the issues that can come up as noise versus the issue that are really coming from your device. So you try to minimize those that come. Let's say if you choose a patient with heart failure, comorbidities, quite a lot of, disease, and then you treat them with the device, but the next day they are not there. There's something bad happens and they go. It's hard for you to say, is it your device or all of the things that the patient was suffering from? So
Right.
really, you really try to uh, focus on what is really the device going to do and what you want to get from that device, and then eliminate anything that can really hurt the patient if they are included with this therapy, one, and two, if they are going to be too sick to be included. Like, let's say an ejection fraction that is 10%. Do you really want that in a study where it's a first in human? So I think that is where you start with the first in human. You learn quite a lot, and then you start opening up your entry criteria to include more patients who are fit, and then can actually your device, now you know what the noises are and not. You start triaging. Okay, I know the device can do this. Now, if the patient has like respiratory disease, it's nothing to do with my pVAD. So they can benefit that. Yeah, let's have them in. So this is a
Mhm.
type of now widening up and then thinking more carefully about how your product is going to be used when it's in the hands of physician after the market approval, and who are the patients they're going to, is it going to
I
hurt
see.
them, really or not. So that's how you kind of triage them. And of course, you have a lot of, like you said, the FDA can come back and push, or the competent authorities don't agree with you on that part of it. There are a lot of also physicians who would criticize, saying you have too much of exclusion or this doesn't make sense. So you gotta have to keep an open minded approach with these stakeholders, like you said, and then understand where they're coming from, because sometimes they come from a good reason that you don't know, and so it's good to open up a communication channel and then better understand it.
What about literature search? Do you engage in that as well in this
Yeah,
process?
absolutely. I mean, the whole study design is the background. You're gonna look at what you have out there, what type of things. So the literature search is one of the foundation of writing a protocol and designing a study. It gives you an idea about if there are other trials that are conducted and that are not
Mm.
published, it's hard to find that. But if there are trials that have been conducted and published, then of course you need to use those, because that's something that will set the expectation of a reviewer, by looking at what is on the market versus what you're doing. So you gotta have to do your search as a part of your design and protocol development, and also the investigator brochure also when you develop that as
I
well. So
see.
it's critical for you. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and then do you use clinicaltrials.gov maybe to see if any current trials are being
Yeah,
being done and
yeah.
and so on? Yeah.
That's the
Um,
first. That's the first thing I go to actually.
I see. Okay,
I go
good. Okay.
to, those will help you figure out the ones that are ongoing, but they are not published, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's always that question that is coming up. Did the FDA approve their design? And if they are enrolling, it gives you a sense. Okay, they got approved to run the study, so it's something that is interesting to include or not.
Mm.
So there is always that, but also you have to look more at the published data for what is in
Mm.
for the study design from sample size and your endpoint, and you look at your clinicaltrial.gov to look at, not all of them put their list of entry criteria, but the ones that are available can help.
Yeah. Do you frequently find yourself like in situations where you have to amend the protocol because of the inclusion exclusion criteria not working out for your study, or do you feel like or is it pretty stable? What I
No,
where
I went. It's hard. No, not always. Yeah, that's one a tricky, very good question too. But it's not everybody think that they when you design a protocol, you gotta have to know that at some point you're gonna hit a wall, unless your protocol is pristine, 100%. But there's always one that will come up that says, I'm having a lot of screen failures because of that one exclusion criteria. And you're going to have to look at it
Mhm.
and say, how much important is it to keep it? Is it a must have or is it a nice to have? So you're going to do a risk assessment on it. The other ones are the ones that are, it's not the enrollment, but a lot of sites are having a deviation because of it. It's just like, that we didn't think about it, that it's not in the day-to-day practice, and now it's becoming a deviation. So you want to really revise your entry criteria to adapt with the standard practice. See, these are things that definitely you learn from and you think about. And when you think you got it all nailed down, it just comes something new happens. But it happens mostly in pivotal studies. It's ironically not in feasibility.
I see. Have you solicited input from clinical research coordinators on the protocol? Do you feel like you ever
Yeah,
have the time? Okay, you do. Okay, like
yeah,
yeah.
I do it now. Actually, during the
Okay.
design of the study, we engage with study coordinators who we have worked on EFS and ask them what they think about it. I had a call with one of the study coordinator to go over the table schedule of evaluation. My team and I, we had that very good feedback from the study coordinator who was saying, you can't do this. This is not going to work. You're going to have a lot of pushback. So, absolutely. I mean, people don't think about it a lot. It
Yeah.
enlightened me when I was at the MDIC meeting. I attended a workshop and I was invited to present about the work on the clinical trial and development of the protocol and how we make the protocol, feasible. And I was really interested to hear the study coordinator because it's an effort. I'm sure maybe it's an effort between collaboration of sponsor sites, study coordinator PIs, CROs, and legal entities, and so and FDA, and then we all kind of share our struggles to how, especially EFS these days, and how to conduct an early feasibility study without having to really suffer through the requirements that come, whether at the site level, sponsor level, or FDA level. And that was enlightening for me to hear how much the study coordinators get the protocol just done and then just do it, right? So
Yeah.
uh, that's a big thing. Yeah.
So MDIC is the Medical Device Innovation
Oh yeah.
Consortium. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the one. I see. That's great. So just like recapping, so your stakeholders are like the FDA, the trial PIs, maybe the leadership at the company,
Study
and then
coordinator.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the research
Representative from
coordinators
the company. Yeah.
company. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, how do you like balance between like trying? Because I guess the goal is for you as a sponsor is to try to have as broad of a criteria as possible, right? Is that usually kind of where you want to be? But then there's constraints that come from a safety perspective that or like from the FDA that make you limit your criteria. Like I'm just trying to understand like how do you how do you decide how broad you want to keep or like maybe the risk of like not meeting the endpoints maybe prevents you from making it too broad?
So yeah, that yes for the last one. So actually, I try to limit the entry criteria to we actually not me Nicole, but I contribute to that as part of the when we discuss and design work on the design to do we need this exclusion criteria? Are we going to lose the right patient? So we
I
look at
see.
is it going to hurt the patient or not? If not, we should probably include them. So we go from that point of view. In fact, I did have an experience where the agency would come back and say, you have too much of an exclusion criteria here. You have to reduce your number if you want to have the product on the market. So really, it's a matter of uh, me as a sponsor is if we want to think about as a sponsor, our benefit is to get the product with the right exclusion criteria that are becoming now the contraindication or warning or whatever
I
that
see.
don't
Mhm.
use it on the person so that when it's used outside in the market, then there are not that long list because they're going to use it anyway if they feel the physician is needed for the patients, right? So that's a safety thing that we don't want to limit.
I see. Great. I want to maybe wrap up like our clinical trial design execution conversation with like patient recruitment challenges and retention
Mhm.
challenges as they relate to cardiovascular device studies. Um, and then kind of maybe you can share your insights on that, and then how do you go about, maybe is there specific strategies that you found to be effective to overcome those barriers for recruitment in these
Yeah.
studies?
Yeah. So I think it varies on the therapy. Of course, enrollment can be very, the valve is different from coronary and so on. But when you run into challenges for enrollment, you have to proactively think the study is going to be conducted with challenges in enrollment and then think about what do I do proactively. So you have nowadays the patient facing materials that you develop. They are submitted to IRBs for approval, along with the initial protocol. They are like Facebook, physician interaction. We engage a lot of physicians to contact other physicians and then kind of do educational kind of sessions during enrollment about the lessons learned. What is it working? Why it's not? I'm not finding patients. What did you do? You have more patients than I do, and how that works. But also separately, we meet with the study coordinators, regular meetings with them to see what is it their challenges. Interestingly, we find that sometimes they don't converge. The challenges are different, and so we try to address the
Mm,
study coordinator challenges versus the PI challenges. Where from a interventional cardiologist, they might have the
yeah,
patient, but they don't have enough resources. And from the study coordinators, they don't have enough tools, to help them. So that's where it's important to really proactively consider what is it the type of tool that you want to use. Do you want to have frequent meetings with the study coordinator? And then a study coordinator meeting is absolutely important. I cannot emphasize how this helps and give them the credit they deserve, whether it's in the beginning of the study, during enrollment. That's I think this is where you learn a lot about what's happening in the study at the level of the study coordinators. And then, of course, the investigator meeting helps. Um, and then the other thing is that, like you said, sometimes enrollment is not about the patient are not there, it's the work that we give them, you know. And so sending them cards, telling them thank you for reaching the 10 patients a month or 3 patients a month or whatever you put a goal with them,
yeah.
it's very useful. So these are, tools are important, communications, um, making sure that you have always a supporting KOL, a PI. It helps. Having a PI very engaged is extremely helpful. So selecting your PI in the study is part of it, and the steering committee as well. So these are things that could really help with the enrollment. And there are
I love.
things that you cannot control.
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting that you said the PI challenges don't converge with the CRC. That was kind of yeah, something I
Not
did.
always.
That not always. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
great. So I think maybe I want to talk about KOLs. But before we do that, maybe we'll do another fun question. I want to kind of understand, what does the day in the life of Nicole Haratani look like? What is your typical day? And I know it's kind of hard to like say what a typical day is, but just generally speaking, I think I'm curious what that looks like.
Well, a typical day is boring, quite frankly. I do no, I have a very now my kids are older enough to not worry about them. They are independent. My daughter works and in the clinical research, as a matter of fact, and my son is just graduated, and so my work, most of the time take a lot of my time. I have to note that I have quite a lot of family and friends all over the world, so it's hard for me to really connect during the week with each of them. But I sacrifice my weekends to really enjoy the weekend with my family and friends whenever they are around. My husband and I, we always try to find something to do. Hiking, I like also biking. I did triathlon at one point, and I had issues with my neck, but I can't run, but I can still bike. I can swim. I like hiking. We live in San Luis Obispo, as you know. It's a gorgeous area, full of trails. You never get bored, and whenever we can go to the beach, I have dogs, and we go and then we take them with us, and then we try to connect with friends. I'm now a pickleball player, so I'm like hooked at the pickleball when I can. So sport is important because it keeps you motivated and it keeps you feel like you're young. So and it's not about how I my age, is about how you feel, and I like to feel good, and that keeps me really in good shape. And at the same time, it's a good for the morale, from it makes, for some reason, after every time I go to exercise or there, I feel happy, it's boost your morale. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
that's what
Yeah.
I do. I love cooking when I can. I cook a lot, and bake. So, and garden. These are my hobbies. Really, gardening is something I love to do.
Yeah. That's a lot. What about like at work? Like, what does that look like when you like start your work day and kind of
Oh my God. I,
yeah.
I am I am in a different world. So it's completely different. I'm so focused and I'm so task oriented that I have this little thing. I don't know if you know about it. These little things that flip a card that shows you how you feel on a daily basis. So every day I put myself in a position where I'm gonna feel today, like happy, inspired. And then I keep it in front of me to tell me, okay, today I have to make my day productive. And so I'm a very task oriented. I like to be in touch with my team members to make sure they're okay. And at the end of the game, I like to really leave work saying I did something today. I feel good. That's how my days are.
I see. Do you like keep in touch with your team like just through calls, or do you guys do other things? How do you like sync up?
Yeah, I am. So I live in San Luis Obispo, and I come on a every other week to the office because I like to meet with the engineers and I like the interaction in person. But the rest of the clinical team is remote. So we do FaceTime. I encourage to turn on the video so that we can, talk to each other and then not keep it impersonal. And like I said, I managed to have a on-site meeting either on site or remote, but where everybody can meet and engage and then get to really
Yeah.
work during the day, make sure that we know we're still on the same page, everybody knows what they need to do. If anyone is struggling, we are here to help. And then at the end, we just do an activity. But on a daily basis, I like to hang around with the engineers because I learn a lot from them.
Yeah.
They are amazing. I have to say, it's the world of engineering is always amazing about how they come up with ideas and things to do, and it helps me in my thinking about okay, what's next, in my clinical strategy. So that's basically where we do a lot of meetings. I travel a lot. Um, I try not to these days, but sometimes it's hard, I like to face-to-face meeting with physicians too. It's just the study coordinators when we go and meet
I
with them
see.
for the first time. It
Hmm.
gives them a feel of, between my boss, Nitin Salunke, and myself, we feel that we like to actually show them that they are valuable for us and we want to be partners and not just a site selected to be, on the list.
Yeah.
So we are very, that matter, personal in terms of remote.
I got it. I think the flip chart that you were showing with the different emotions, I think it's pretty powerful. And makes you put in a mindset that I'm going to feel happy. I read a book by Todd Herman called The Alter Ego Effect. This was like a couple years ago, and it's something similar where he kind of talks about like you putting on a like a you know putting on another hat. Like you come to work and say this, if you were this person, how would you behave at work? And or like how would you show up in that role, right? And kind of it, like maybe I
Yeah,
don't put on my glasses on and I'm just like this dual person when I'm performing a certain task. And I thought it was pretty powerful, like framework, like to just think about yourself as being this other person, and kind of it helps you
it's
like,
true.
yeah, that's great.
It
Um,
does. It is. You're right.
talk about key opinion leader collaboration, because I think a lot of these medical products, especially class 3 medical devices, are pretty, I mean, I think all medical products, but you do have to collaborate with clinicians along the way. You can't get these products on the market, without, working with the KOLs or run these trials successfully, these studies. So, typically at what stage do you start involving KOLs in the conversation, and then how does that evolve during the course of the study?
Yeah. Yeah, we at least in this company, but in every company, I involve the physician as soon as we think that we're gonna start a study. We're gonna run a study. It's like, okay, let's get them and then do advisory committee, whatever it is, because the earlier we have this feedback, the more realistic you have a path. Because sometimes we tend to be on our little cloud and think this is what we should do. And then when you go,
Mm,
it's a little late and you involve the physician, there's a whole 360 shuffle,
mm,
and
mm,
all the work
mm,
you've done is almost not realistic because that's not the reality. This is what the company wants. So I think one has to be really proactively involving the physician that you feel are uh, going to be committed to work with you for the sake of the success of the product and
okay.
as concerned as you about the safety. And then two, who knows, enough about what can be done or not to advise you. And I honestly think the physicians, they have good feedback. They have amazing feedback in the real world. And then all we need to do is translate those into the study and how to apply
Mm,
them. And that's basically where one has to learn. You don't, because if you listen and then have every physician tell you do this, then another one to do this, and then another one do that, then if you're taking all those and you want to apply them, sometimes they contradict each other. I think one has to be really thinking about, okay, I'm taking all this information and I put them, how do I apply the best of what I'm learning here that is going to help me? And eventually, when you share it, they all say, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what I meant." So it's something that I didn't have when I started in clinical research. Nobody actually really told me how to work on it. I learned it as from I learned from my mistake. Let me put it that way. So it's good to learn and you learn from your mistake and you say, okay, now I'm not gonna do this again. I learned
Hmm.
it and I'm
Hmm.
not gonna do it. You gotta have to engage them as soon as possible. As you go in the study, if they are still part of the study, that's great. You gotta have to make them feel, I mean, they are part of the, if they helped you put the design and spend time with you to brainstorm on what your study is going to be, you're going to continue to work with them because they are bringing good input. I think it's a collaboration, absolute needed collaboration between sponsor and KOLs to be and so the selection of the KOL is really a key here.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Are there any like best practices? Because there tend to be disagreements with KOLs, I'm assuming, or things that the company wants to move in one direction, they want to do it in a different direction, or there's just like mistakes that happen along the way in communication, or things get lost in translation. How do you kind of manage? Like, what are some effective strategies to manage a relationship with the key opinion leader?
There are things that I can do, and other I engage with my boss, the CEO, because when it comes to a business decision that can be really not fitting our business, but the physician is really eager to have this, then one has to take a step back and think, well, it's scientifically extremely important. We agree with you, but at this stage, if we are a company, let's say a startup company, and we have some financial, restriction, we're gonna have to pick the must-have for us to get where we want versus the nice-to-have. And so we typically really agree together on how we're gonna talk to them without offending. And I think so we have been very successful because they understand, that a startup company is a startup company. We have burn rates, right? We, if anything's gonna extend and create more challenge or, make our study more sophisticated, academically, but not realistically for our startup, then we have to be really open about it and share that information with them. And they have been quite so far understanding. But if you say no and you don't give them a reason, I think you get challenged. You have to deal with it.
I
It's
see.
transparency is a key. In other words,
Got it. Okay, that sounds good. Anything else you want to add on that?
on this topic,
Yeah.
KOLs, no, I
Yeah.
think I have a little advantage, I'd say, that I think that working with physicians in hospitals in the ICU, understanding the mindset and how they work, it's basically, at some point, the nurse and the doctor understand each other to a point where they don't need to talk. They look at each other and they know what the next step is. And you get
I
this,
see.
and after so many years, you understand it. I think I learned how to get reconnected with these physicians in my job because it's something that you kind of on the same wavelength, right? It's same channel, so it makes it easier. But overall, I think as long as you work well with the KOLs, there's no reason why there shouldn't be any challenge. And of course, there will be challenge, but you have to be very, very careful about how you deal with it
Yeah.
professionally.
I'm curious if you've been part of any projects where you've had to like publish the data or work with the physician on like getting that published, and how did like what did that look like, that process? And if there was more than one physician on the paper, how did you kind of manage, their interests in this, like who's the first author, who's the last author, in like who's going to do what, and or like which topics you end up selecting for the publication. How, because clinically something might be more interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, this is a very good topic that a lot of people actually are very, they feel nervous about it. Well, I've been through that, and I again learned from my own mistake. And the lessons learned that I came up with is that you have to establish a publication committee from the beginning. The same way you put in your study design, you have to have a publication committee with rules, and the rules will apply to everybody. So the publication committee will have to be agreed upon from the beginning about who's going to publish, what are going to publish. So it to kind of set the expectations from the beginning and doesn't wait till the end to get into this, because people avoid that. It's a Some people, they as you know, there are different ways of facing problems. But people kind of go into the problem directly and then face it. The others will say, I'm going to avoid it. It's not making me any, it's not going to help me. I'll cross this bridge when I get to it, when it's there. But then sometimes it's good strategy in some ways. In other ways, it's a little too late to fix it. And having that committee have been and then writing a publication plan from the get-go gets the expectation from the beginning, and then you don't have then when you get to the outcome and the data and the result to fight about who's the primary author, who's the secondary. You have already set all the things that you want to publish from the beginning, and it worked. It worked on a major study. It's gonna, it's working on one study we did, and physicians then are they committed. Sometimes you have a study where you put your contract saying, if you reach a top enroller, you will be the second next to the primary author. You kind of have to. That's the plan, and that's the publication plan and the committee who actually agree with
Well, yeah,
these expectations. So
yeah,
really put early enough. Yeah, but
yeah.
my lesson learned is when I announced to one that he's the primary author. By default, it was the physician, one of the co-PI. It turned out to be like a disaster. I should have talked to all of them. But I learned quite a lot after that. That okay, let's put you all in one room. Let's all agree, and then we put the publication plan on the set, on the spot, and then we agreed all on how. And the biostat was involved too, so that's another
I
important
see.
thing.
Sure. So what was the disaster? Like, why was there a disaster, you said, with this? Did you just like pick a
The
physician and you
disaster
thought,
is that the physicians don't, yeah, physicians don't agree to be not to. They want to be the first author, while the other one
I
was
see,
already, promised to be the first author. So I had to do damage control on my own thing.
I see,
But it
I
was
see.
really one of those things that you wish somebody kind of prepared me. And that was a long time ago. It was to me it was like really naive about how to manage that, but I learned it.
Yeah. So you mentioned like you had the RAG certification or had taken the test at one point, and I'm curious, like, so I guess you also work with regulatory affairs in your role right now. Like, if there's some effective strategies or effective ways of collaborating with regulatory affairs, and also like with the FDA. What have you? I know FDA has like a lot of guidance documents on how to do the Q sub meetings and so on. But just kind of your perspective on what makes a winning team when it comes to partnering with regulatory and the FDA.
A clinical and regulatory, they have to be hands in hand and working hand in hand. I cannot emphasize more about it until I could not really see this until I took the role of managing RA clinical, and it was no brainer that you cannot do this without that, and vice versa. So I do collaborate a lot with regulatory. We have regular meetings to make sure we're on the same page. I'm involved, in a lot of the submissions. When it comes to the clinical, I'm the one, presenting the strategy, and I have always a physician in the room to talk to the therapy and to talk to the benefit from a physician perspective. When it comes to statistical sample size, statistical thing, I have always in the room my biostat to talk to the other biostat. So I think the FDA really acknowledged that, you know, honestly, I have had good relationship with the FDA in my career when I worked with as a regulatory. The key for it is to really listen, but don't do what they want you to do if you don't feel comfortable. But you have to tell them why you're not comfortable with it. As long as you have that open dialogue, it works with most of them. And I really think I was successful in this submitting and getting approvals and proceeding with the clinical trial because the interactive reviews and all these discussions during the submission or before the submission were extremely productive, and then we kind of came up with a plan to, okay, this is what we're going to do. You commit, I commit, and it works. And I'm now currently only managing clinical affairs because I have already way too many clinicals to a lot of work, and I really appreciate our regulatory person. He's amazing, and I cannot really say more than working together is what makes things successful, quite frankly.
I see. That's great. Yeah, I agree and understand like that the partnership needs to be very close between the two teams for the programs to move forward. I think my final question or last few questions, I think I want to talk about maybe career development. So for professionals that are looking to like build their careers in cardiovascular device clinical research, what skills or experiences would you recommend they prioritize?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it's funny because my daughter did biology, and then she interned as clinical research. And the first day she's like, I don't understand anything what these people are talking on the call. And I looked at her, I was like, it's all medical terms, you should know. And she's like, it's a lot of abbreviations. DSMB, CER, CSR, PI, CIP, ICF. I have no idea. I think the internship is a good way to get a foot into the industry. And if any organization offers internship, that's a great way to get to know. And I think the second thing is if you really are interested in doing research, talk to somebody without having to go to classes first. Talk to somebody to explain what is clinical research. There's people don't understand the infrastructure when they come from out and they come and join the clinical. They're overwhelmed. The reality is every project, every clinical trial has its own clinical infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I mean you have safety, you have data management, you have, medical writers, you have trial manager. So you need the infrastructure to run the study. Now, sometimes you wear multiple hats, but the role is the same, right? And understand what these roles are, and then see where you fit, maybe tag along, to some people, understand each role, what they do. Is it something you like to be traveling and be in the field versus you like to work in front of a computer versus you like to work, in the office most of the time? There's no good or bad. It's how they feel themselves fitting. And if this is something that they want to do, trust me, if you want something, you'll get it. I
Yeah.
always tell my kids, never say, I don't know. If this is what you put in your head that you want it, you will get it. It's a matter of being patient, perseverant, and resilient, and you'll get it.
I love
So
it.
that's my lessons learned.
I love it. That's solid advice. Thank you. Um, and how has the field like evolved during your career? Do you feel like what trends do you see like shaping our future?
How can you repeat the question
Yeah,
a little
I'm
bit?
just curious, like, how has the field of cardiovascular like
Um,
device clinical research like evolved over the years? Do you feel like it's still the same of what it was before, or like in the last 20, 30 years, or do you feel like we're in a different?
oh my God, no,
Yeah, and
no,
then
it
where are
evolved
we? Where
from,
are we headed? Yeah,
yeah, no, speaking about a nurse who used to practice, like my life was for 15 years, day, night, everything. And I came now visiting, a cath lab or an OR, and I'm amazed by what they do. And I compare to where I was, of course, granted, we're talking about almost 20 or 30 years, but it's evolving even more rapidly now,
I
with the
see.
technology. Now they're talking about AI, and they're talking about, the whole, it's very becoming very sophisticated. I see vendors coming and telling me now I have an AI that can manage project management, and I was like, oh my God, this is really, it's a clinical trial, not cardiovascular. And if you look at the cardiovascular field, it's impressive. It's just, evolving, and it's easier to get, the product in clinical trial than it used to be. Quite people, we went through difficult and now easier and difficult easier, like in Europe, when MDR came, it was like, oh my God, nobody's going there. Now people are feeling comfortable. So any new thing that comes into the regulatory agencies, any change, there is a little bit of back and then forward. But I think from the cardiovascular, that's one of the fields that's why I came back to cardiovascular, because I deviated and I worked for a couple of years in urology, and I found it interesting, but I found myself more attractive to what I grew up with, which was cardiovascular. So I came back to it, and it's a constant learning of new devices, new therapy. It's amazing how I feel good, because as somebody in the medical, you want the patient to be treated with as many options as possible, that there is a cure for them. And that's what we're doing. If we continue to do this, we are reaching the goal of the medical device and the cardiovascular industry and the research.
I see. Do you feel like the products have evolved or become better? That's kind of where, like, with
I
the yeah,
do, I do,
yeah,
I do,
yeah.
definitely. There's
I
more.
also think the number of medical products available has also exploded, like to treat.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
think about the TAVI and the valve world. 10 years ago, it was so shy, and 15 years ago, nobody heard about it. Look at now, it became part of they do TAVI like they do stent, right? So that's an example. And it evolved within the last only few years. And I think the pVAD and other therapies, they're evolving even more quickly, like the pulmonary embolism is another other one. So there are a lot of things coming out that are extremely beneficial for the patient, and that's exciting.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the new generation physicians or people, they are very creative and they come out with new ideas. That even when you're in the industry for so many years, you hear somebody young and coming out and come up with this idea. It's like, wow, how did not we think about this? So
Right.
that's the kind of the way they learned is they apply how now they learned with this new technologies, apply it into the clinical field. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned TAVI and something else you mentioned. I was trying to catch that, but I don't know if you remember what you said. If
Oh,
not, that's okay.
percutaneous, PVAD, percutaneous ventricular assist device. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
This is
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
we the EVAC is referred to. Percutaneous is technically is really having a pump in the heart through a 10 French insertion of the femoral. While back in my days, it was this huge machine sitting on the next of the bed of
Uh-huh.
the patient, and the patient could not go anywhere, and it was like dramatic, kind of, very few
Yeah.
would survive, having a support, outside support. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of evolution here, which is great.
So you talk about like vendors pitching you this project management for clinical trials using AI. Is that what you just said? Is that what you've been exploring?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, I was intrigued. So I'm a gadget person, so it doesn't mean it's good or bad, but I like anything new that I like to put my
Mhm.
hands on and then learn. And I came across this one that is AI kind of driven project management that look at multiple applications to come up with like matrix and updates on a daily basis. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I don't know how it works yet, but I can tell you that if we heading that way, you know, it would be easier, for people. It's not taking the work out of the hands of employees. I hope not, but it's a tool. It's a tool that will be helpful. I like to use it as a tool and not to replace an individual.
Yeah. Okay. I just think one last question that I kind of, if you don't mind, just in terms of international clinical trials, have you seen like do you run separate studies when you're trying to do global like strategy, or do you kind of have one study that kind of covers uh, the world?
Ideally, one study is better. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's better to run a study that is global.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, there was a lag.
No, no, that's okay. Yeah, I got it. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, global is better as long as you know which one you have to start first to go to, which will have a delay in
Hmm.
terms of review and approval, and then to make sure that you don't have multiple protocol with that study. People fall
Yeah.
into that, and all of a sudden you have now a study for this country, study for that, a protocol, but it's one study. That's a big mistake. You can always write one protocol that is one for all,
Yeah.
and it's actually adjustable. It's You can work with the agency and then competent authorities and get their advice ahead of time at some points. But if you run two studies, infrastructure wise and budget wise, it's quite challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Now,
think also like just like the CE regulations have evolved quite a bit. Like if you were trying to do things in Europe, so I was also like trying to how do you kind of have a US and CE trial that's combined, because then you would have different considerations, or maybe not.
yeah, but maybe not exactly. I think one has to think about how to strategically interact and try to see what is the best to get feedback on the study design from the notified body, or they usually now they don't do it. They actually get the competent authority assigned to review the whole protocol. They
I see.
report to a competent authority and they want to be involved. So there are ways that you can always go, and rather than just approach them with this is the protocol, or you can submit there earlier and then come to the US. I mean, that's one thing to think about it. But there are ways, where you can really run the global study and then come out with one consensus. Running two studies, it could be helpful if you want to go in the market, for example, in the US. If you get quicker approval and quicker submission and quicker approval, you have to draw your timeline and see and forecast where would I get here quicker and I get in the market and launch my product in the US. Meanwhile, I'm continuing to run a study in Europe, or so you have to figure out. It's a option A, option B, option C, and then sit down and then put them and see what is it best for your business.
I see. Great. Um, we were talking. Sorry, my brain is percolating with all these rich conversations we've had so far. we talked about investigator and research coordinator meeting. I had actually done a solo episode on this exact topic with my framework. So I'm going to link that for people if they want to check out that interview. Not interview, it was actually me just talking, like how do you design a research coordinator / investigator meeting. So I'd love for people to check that out. You mentioned about the BSI course at like when we started our conversation. Was that, what do you remember, is that a certificate for quality you said? Is that what it was? Do you know what course it is?
Yeah,
And like, yeah. And do you recommend like people check
it
it
was
out,
about
or
the coaching.
what was that,
Yeah,
equality?
yeah.
Yeah.
If absolutely. I learned quite a lot about it from it because there was the detail level in RAPS you learn, but it's not the detail level. You have the audit version, you have the auditor version, you have the regulatory quality person version sponsor. I chose the sponsor one, and it's the ISO 13485 when we transitioned from the 20 to the 2016, and then eventually there was a 2013 2016 there was some changes that needed to be done, and because I was managing quality, I thought and the auditor was coming, and I had my quality person explaining things. I thought, why not? I can sign up, and I took the class, and I had to pass a test. It's similar to RAPS. And RAPS, I didn't mention that. The second time was within COVID. It was during COVID, and while the first test I passed, I had to be in person. Second, I had to do in a room and then carry my camera and then swap it around to show there's nobody in the room. It was I was more stressed than I did when I did my baccalaureate test back in high school. But going back to the BSI, it was around that same time. I did the test, and it was, the instructor was so good actually because it was live instruction, live courses
Live.
and
Yeah.
classes, and they really interacted, asking questions that I'm seeing real time, and I'm asking,
Mm-hmm.
so if we have this, what does happen? If we have that in general, what happens? And it kind of all of a sudden the pieces of the puzzle are coming together in the whole world of quality in my head. So I found it extremely helpful in as a person who is doing the course. Yeah.
I see. That's great. So did you self-study? Oh, you did the course and then you took the test through BSI. Is that what you're saying? Got it.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
Great. No, I love it. And have you maintained your RAC certifications, or you've kind of moved away from that?
I moved away. I keep my yeah, yeah. I moved away because at some point, if it's I keep learning a lot on isolated topics, but not the whole thing. And the only reason is because I thought is not doing regulatory at this point. It's good to be aware of it. I know it. I don't need to maintain it. And honestly, I'm content where I am at this point with clinical, considering how many years I have been in the field now. What I count more than 25. I say I don't want to say more, but it's really, to me, it's about enjoying what I'm doing, and then reaching my goal, a goal of the company, and the milestone, which is getting a
Mm-hmm.
product out there, and then the rest is a plus. I continue to read a lot of books when there's a topic that I don't know about. I go back and then I go into like reading about, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean?
Yeah.
It's my nature. I'm a curious person from nature. I like to eh, feel educated about everything that I get in touch with, but it helps. It helps tremendously to
Yeah.
do that.
With the quality certification, you just did the 1 day course and then you just took the test, or did you like also do some self study in between? Yeah, I'm
I
just curious because I
it
wanted
was
to.
the one day.
What
Yeah,
was
it
that?
was the 1 day course. It was
Oh,
the 1 day course. It was in Southern California. I can't remember where.
I see.
It
And
was a
then you
full
took the
day.
test the same day or the next day? Is
No,
that what you?
no, no. They at that time it was COVID, so I took it remote,
I
and then I
see.
took it like a week or two later.
Oh, I
where,
see.
you know, yeah, it was, they gave us a link and they give us the test to do, and you have somebody with you, sitting on the other side.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Maybe I think we can wrap up with like your favorite resources, books that have influenced the way you think, that you'd like to share with others.
Yeah, let's see. I'm very oriented in books that talk about. It's not necessarily books about the career itself or my career. It's more books that about resilience and determination and not giving up. I'm very inspired by these books. Lean In. I don't know if you know Lean In from Sheryl Sandberg is one of my
Hmm.
favorite actually. I
Yeah.
read it probably 2 or 3 times. I felt like I was part of it. Literally, she's describing exactly what I'm going through. Being myself a woman who comes and I'm half Middle Eastern French. I have a language that is not. I'm not American. English is not my first language, and I'm in the field. It's not an easy path, to get where but I like the fight. I like the challenge, not fight, challenge. I like the challenge. And I really, it's a test for me, that if you wanted to do it, you have to really see how you can do it. And then with the understanding that you are going to do it. So that is where my books will inspire me more. When I feel like I'm drawn a little bit back, there's another book that I read. There was one book that maybe it's related or not. It's called A Hope Bigger Than the Sea. And it's about a girl who is a Syrian girl, refugee, who was in the Syrian civil war. She ended up on a boat and a refugee. And at some point in her journey, the boat overcapped, and then she actually ended up with having the baby of some stranger on the boat. And she was determined she was to reach the shore, and then eventually she was found. But the story is narrated by this the author is amazing, that you just think, oh my God, if we are not resilient enough. I mean, if you see what that person went through, and then you see when we give up quickly on little things, makes you feel like, no, everything in our life is about results. And if we give up, we're not gonna, get anywhere. So that was another book. Yeah, all the books that inspire me about, women. I'm very proud to be a woman who worked and at the same time had the family, to take care of. And then coming where I'm coming from, being a nurse and building my career while I'm learning. I feel like if I can do it, a lot of people can. So if that can be an example for people who think that they want to grow in their life, in their career, uh, they gotta have to think that if they put it in their mind, it takes an effort, but they will get there. And
Yeah.
you know things like this is important to remember, that there is no rule to what you want to be in your life.
Yeah. You said
You put
hope
the rule.
bigger. What was the name of the book? Hope bigger than the. I didn't catch the full name.
A hope bigger than the sea, a hope bigger
Hope.
than the sea.
Hope bigger than the sea. SEA. I see.
Yeah, let me see, is it a hope bigger than the sea? Yeah, did you see
Uh,
it? Did you find
a
it?
hope. Yeah. A hope more powerful than the sea. I think that's what.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah. By
yeah, yeah,
Melissa.
yeah.
By Melissa Fleming. Right. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, she's amazing. The way she writes the book, and it makes you feel the pain that that girl is going through, and
Hmm.
the determination of her getting into a place where she can actually be free, and that's amazing. And I
Yeah.
relate somehow in it with my childhood was in the war, and I was determined that I want to be successful in my life, and my parents were always saying, You study, it's your ticket to success. You don't have a diploma, you'll never go anywhere. So you gotta have to study no matter what. So I took this very seriously, and it pays off.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, thanks for sharing and inspiring others. What about like any other like online resources that you find yourself referring to frequently? Are there any you want to mention? If not, that's okay.
I Yeah, no, I'm a very like article a publication person. So when I need to learn something, I type the keyword and I read the paper. Uh,
I love it.
seriously.
So you
I'm
just
like
you just you
I
just
just
you
want to
just
go.
purchased it. You just purchased the article, or how do you like access some of those articles?
Sometimes it's a fee. If I have to purchase it, I purchase it because I feel like if I'm gonna benefit from it. And most of the time I do. So yeah, I have a huge library of publication on anything. As a matter of fact, it can be,
What are your favorite journals?
something on
Are there any favorite journals you have that you?
Jack. I like Jack. I like Jack and circulations are very, I have this Jack subscription and I get all these little things that come up. And as part of my renewal of nursing, I every 2 years you have to study something. They give you material and you have to read it and then complete the questionnaires. And it has nothing to do with cardiology. Like let's say Alzheimer or polycystic kidney disease or anything that come up as a course. You can just read it. It keeps you kind of motivated. And so if
I love
somebody's
it.
saying I have this disease, I'm like, wait, and I go and I start looking at it. Yeah, it's my daughter tells me, yeah, I'm so curious. There, I'm gonna be buried with all these papers that I have. But yeah, that's how I resourcing is. Just type the keyword you want to learn. Even Wikipedia is good.
Circulation, is that a
History.
cardiovascular? Circulation is a cardiovascular journal, or like? I'm sorry.
It's a general. Yeah, it's a general one.
Yeah.
Cardiovascular is a jack.
Oh, I see. Perfect. That's great. I didn't know about you, so that's great. Thanks for sharing. And I was when I was talking to Greg Stone, and I remember like we had this conversation about books, and he's like, by the time the book is published, we're like, well, it's too late. Like things have already progressed too quickly in the field, which I thought was very
Yeah.
interesting that he mentioned that.
That's true, actually. It's true. It's
Yeah,
when they put the white papers and they put the book and you spend so much time on it, by the time it's published, then it's outdated. He's absolutely right. It happened with me when I bought the book about TAVI when I started working at Sarja, first time in the TAVI. And I bought the book and it was already outdated and it
yeah,
was brand new in Amazon. So it's like really interesting that he said that. It's so true.
great. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. We've been at it for more than an hour and a half now, so thanks for your time, and I really appreciate
Oh my
you being
goodness.
on the show.
Thank you for listening to the Clinical Trial Podcast. For more exclusive clinical research content to get you to the top of your game, head on over to clinicaltrialpodcast.com.